I'm an author, and in 2025, I really struggled with that feeling of losing my creative spark. And although 2025 was quite a big year for me in terms of I had big exams, I had graduation, starting a new job, moving out, going through a big relationship change, I still had periods of time in and around that where I had breaks and I had time to myself, and yet I still couldn't bring myself to be as passionate about my projects as I used to be. I just felt constantly unmotivated and uninspired, and I never wanted to get on my laptop and just write. The only thing I managed to do was edit the book that I had published that year, but that was kind of just because I'd set myself a deadline and it had to be done. But towards the end of the year, I felt my mindset start to shift, and now in 2026, I have more inspiration and motivation than I ever have. And I've noted down all of the things that really help me get my spark back. And I want to help you guys out and share them. Because honestly, there really is no worse feeling than writer's block, artist block, feeling like you can't even do the things that you love the most. No more yapping, let's just get into them. Number one, which seems the most counterproductive, but that is ditching your books, ditching your laptop screen, ditching your current project, ditching whatever it is that you're trying to work on, and focus on you as a person. And what I mean by that is look at your routines, look at your diet, look at your hydration, look at your habits. When you're so hyper focused on trying to do artsy projects or trying to force yourself to be creative, sometimes it's really hard to see that the blockers are coming from outside of it. As an example, for a lot of 2025, I was eating quite restrictively because of a bad relationship. And I honestly didn't even realize until I got out of that relationship and I realized I wasn't even eating enough every single day. Simple things like fueling your body can make so much more of a difference than you realize. The second I just started eating what I wanted and eating healthily and eating enough every day, I suddenly had so much energy that it's like I don't even know what to do with it sometimes. This January, I have been the most productive I have ever been in my whole life. And I would go so far as to say that it is purely down to having enough energy. Stop focusing so much on that project you're trying to do and focus on yourself. When you leave those things be and stop trying to force them, they will come back to you naturally when they're meant to come back to you. And I know you may be thinking, but I want to do them now. I feel stuck now. Sometimes it's not always as easy as that. Sometimes you just got to give it a little bit of time to leave them be and let them come back to you. I could give a similar example for when I fixed my morning routine and started getting up 3 hours before I had to go to work, so I had those extra 3 hours in the morning. Suddenly, I found myself having an extra hour and a half in the morning just to write my book, which I always struggled to find the time for when I was coming home after work exhausted and just didn't want to do that. I just wanted to crawl into my bed. So, again, looking at the little things like that diet, habits, routines, leave the projects alone. They will come back to you naturally when they're meant to be worked on. Number two, and this is about kind of how to get your inspiration back, and that is to go outside. I'm not going to sit here and say touch grass, but also I kind of am saying that. I found that my biggest inspiration for my biggest projects has always come from literally going for a walk. And I didn't notice this pattern when I was a bit younger because obviously I hadn't had as many projects, so I didn't see it as a pattern and I hadn't done it enough times to realize that that was what was happening. But for example, my first book that I published, for some reason, the inspiration came from walking across this little patch of grass outside my school at the time. And then the inspiration for my second book, and also kind of the series that it's going to turn into, came from when I moved into one of my university accommodations and I was walking down the canal. Then at the end of 2025, when I kind of started getting my inspiration back again, I realized that I got the inspiration for the book that I was writing then from literally just going for a walk where I live now. You can now see the pattern. It was literally going for a walk. It was as simple as that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to hike up a mountain. You don't have to like take up a whole new sport or something. It's as simple as going for a little walk in an area you haven't been before, or just, exploring somewhere that you've never been before. Maybe hopping on the train and going to a couple of stops over, but you've never been there before, so you don't know what it looks like, and it's just a new surrounding. The best thing that you can do for your mind and for inspiration is going to new places, traveling and exploring somewhere new. Sometimes it's about the things that you see there, sometimes it's just about a change in environment. Either way, and this isn't just me, it's so good for your mind and your body as well. You know, when you exercise, it's good for your body and you sleep better. And when you sleep better, you have more brain power. There's so much to say for just going outside and getting your steps in. Number 3 is taking up something new or trying a different style of the thing that you currently do. Now, obviously, I'm going to take the example of writing because I am a writer. Usually, I write big projects, I write novels, and I write normally in some realm of mystery or fantasy or dystopian or thriller, stuff like that, which is quite a broad range, but there are still lots of genres that I don't write in. Let's say horror. Or even romance, I don't really write a lot. And then, of course, there's flash fiction, there's short stories, there's poetry. When you give your mind a break from trying to force yourself to do the thing that you usually do, it's great in two ways because, for one, you're giving yourself the time to, again, come back to that project naturally. But for two, it's you're not giving it up and you're not using your mind and your creativity. And this is the same with trying something new, taking up a new artistic hobby, is that you're still using that part of your brain and you're not just completely giving it up. Number 4 is to do something really niche or specific related to something that you love. Let me explain this. Let's say you really love history. You could take a trip to a museum, or the same with art, going to an art museum. Probably wondering how this is related to creativity and your artistic projects. And the answer is because you're still doing something that you love and you're finding inspiration in a completely different way, in a completely different aspect of your life. When we do things that we love, we are just more at peace and we're more happy, obviously. And just being in that good mindset is so perfect for trying to get your inspiration and your motivation back. Because ultimately, if you have no energy, if you're not in a good mood, if you're stressed and if you're unhappy and you're doing things that make you unhappy, that's really not going to help with finding the motivation to do other things that you love. You can probably tell by this point in the video that it is all kind of just a cycle. If you're treating your body the right way and treating your mind the right way, it kind of comes back to you. Now, number 5, and this is the most fun one of the video, and that is to try and be a little bit unhinged in the way that you go about it. I'm very keen to make a video all about unhinged writing advice and writing motivation, but because this is not a writing specific video, I'll just give one example now to explain what I mean. When I'm trying to force myself through a little bit of a book, because it's always about 3/4 of the way through. There's some scenes that I can't really be bothered to write, but I need to get them in there for the plot, just for the first draft. The other week, I planned out my week by saying, right, on Monday, I'm going to write 732 words. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to write 321. And Wednesday, I'm going to write 1009. Something like that. Just something completely out there and just a bit like you wouldn't normally do it. Obviously, that's not that insane, I'm aware. But I would absolutely not usually do that. And it's just such a weird target that your brain is like, right, I want to do that so I can tick it off my little list of the week ahead. And this definitely does link back to number 3 because, again, you could be trying out some new art style or just something completely out there that you've never done before. But this one is more about just kind of letting go and letting yourself be free and let yourself do something fun. When we link our projects in our heads with being fun and being a little bit crazy and a little bit out there and a little bit weird, then you always kind of subconsciously have that link of, oh, that was really fun. And obviously we're drawn to doing things that we think are fun and that we enjoy doing. So it's kind of about tricking your brain into thinking that it's not boring or difficult or however you might have been thinking about it before, because ultimately it is fun. It is what we want to be doing. We're just struggling to get there a little bit. So those were my 5 tips on how to get your creative spark back. What I loved about how this video turned out is how originally I thought, oh, these are 5 very different tips, but as you go through them, you kind of realize they are all interlinked and they all do kind of link to each other. And you start to notice the patterns of kind of what really you should be doing just to kind of reset your mind and your body into how you're thinking about these projects. But I hope you guys learned something or just enjoyed sitting here listening to me yap. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.